Now, joining us at the roundish table this week, the former head of current affairs at the Fox Network, Gerald Stone, and the former New Orleans recovery czar, Ed Blakely, now with the United States Studies Centre. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Ed, first to you on infrastructure. The President rather alarmingly said in the State of the Union there are 70,000 structurally deficient bridges in the United States. We need to fix it first. We need to do something about this. I imagine after your experience in New Orleans, you'd be all for fixing up infrastructure.
Well, I am. He probably underestimated the number of bridges and roads that need to be fixed. But this is really another stimulus program. And let's be clear about that. The President cannot spend money on domestic issues except those that are pork. This has a lot of pork in it. Every congressman is going to get a bridge or something out of this and will put Americans to work. But it is also a stimulus another way. I just came back from the States, and I saw a lot of cranes in the sky. And where were they? They were on factories. Factories are reopening in the United States. And if you have factories reopening, you need roads, you need trains, and so on. So the President's on target.
What do you think, Ed, of the fix-it-first theory, that rather than building new stuff, just fix the stuff that's already there, it's cheaper to do, it's more efficient, it'll save money in the future? That's a theory. What do you think of that?
I think it's more than a theory. It's in fact correct. The United States has some of the best infrastructure systems in the world. They're just out of repair. If you look at the U.S. road system, you look at the U.S. rail system, they are really located in the right place. They're not trying to build something new. Now, the fast train will actually go on the same lines that the existing is, except for California. So this is a smart way to go.
Do you think, Gerald, this whole idea of, of patching up what's there, is that in a funny kind of way an admission that America's best days are behind it? We can't do better than the highways built under Eisenhower in the 50s. We just got to keep fixing them up.
Well, the one thing I saw is that the elephant in the room wasn't mentioned at all, which was America going into debt, the amount of spending that's going on, and how to bring money back from all that spending. It was never mentioned spend, but not, try to cut the debt.
Is that the only spending that is possible, the kind of pork that Ed talks about? That's the only spending that Congress will agree on these days?
Well, certainly when you're talking about bridges and things like that, yes, that's huge pork.
Yeah.
And that's what politicians are good at, I guess.
Hey, what politician doesn't like a ribbon cutting?
Absolutely. That's right. Joe, on the Fox News coverage of immigration and the fact that there's been this sort of road to Damascus conversion, funnily enough, ever since November's election, and the huge deficit in the Hispanic vote that Republicans have. Is this something that comes from? Does Roger Ailes just send out a memo sort of saying we now support immigration reform, we're now pro-Latino?
Look, first of all, we have to make a difference between the Fox cable network, which is Roger Ailes, and then the Fox network, which is basically a mainstream American network.
So you want to be associated more with The Simpsons than with Sean Hannity?
Very definitely. I was not connected at all with the Fox cable. And Fox cable is basically an opinion station, and meant to, designated to get rid of the kind of small L liberalism that they see in the mainstream American networks based in New York. Very much like the ABC is accused of small L bias. That's what Ailes is fighting against, and that's why he's made his reputation.
So you're saying you don't even see that necessarily as journalism? Fox News, it's advocacy.
It's opinion. It's certainly opinion. But they got themselves in a hole because, Fox cable was very much in support of the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party was basically decimated at this last election in terms of demographics. And so now, all these people that they've been insulting for years and years, Latinos who are illegal immigrants, we used to call them wetbacks in the old days, blacks as being on the welfare and so on. Now they have to try to make some kind of concession to these. So Roger Ailes is opening up a dialogue with the Spanish Americans and saying, come on over, we want to convert you to republicanism.
Of course, Roger Ailes has a whole channel now, Fox News Latino. Do you think do you think that's an effective tactic, or do you think it's forlorn effort?
Well, it's certainly an effective tactic because there's a lot of Latinos in
they do have their own stations already. already. Like Univision is one of the biggest news channels.
Well, that's right. But let's, his original aim is to try to win people over to support the conservative government, conservative rule, and so they can't just keep knocking these people. They have to make some concessions, and they're now talking about the great contribution that Latin Americans have made to the society.
One thing I found very interesting in this whole issue was what effect Obama has on this issue, in that Republicans are coming across to immigration, there's no doubt about that. But while 60% of Republicans support, in a recent Washington Post poll, support a path to citizenship just as a pure concept, when Obama supports it, only 39% support it. And I wonder whether it's necessarily a good idea for Obama to push it so hard during the State of the Union if he wants it to be a bipartisan.
Well, he is the president of the United States.
And that's all the people. But there are two things here. First of all, the Latino vote is what we're after here. To get the Latino vote, you've got to do something for Latinos more than give them citizenship. They are at the bottom of the economic rung. What's the president doing? Raise the minimum wage, provide health care. So the Republicans have a difficult choice here. The Latinos who own businesses, the small number, may go Republican. But the much larger number, and that's the citizens who could vote, would probably go in the other category because they're going to get more out of it.
Ironically, that's exactly the same argument Rush Limbaugh uses, except from the opposite way.
Rush is a good mate.
But it used to be, of course, Ed, that the Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, African Americans voted for the Republicans for about 60, 70 years until the
Absolutely. When I was a kid, I was told to vote Republican when I was old enough to vote. My grandfather was a Republican, etc. Most of my family were Republicans because slavery was still on the horizon. My great-grandfather was a slave. He was freed by the Republicans. But when it turned and it looked like the Republican Party was against black people in the South, it all moved in the other direction. Because the Democrats were giving black people something. Not just citizenship, not just opportunity, but a path to freedom. So the Republicans have to do the same thing.
Right, parties change, of course, and I've just seen Lincoln, the movie, and the Republicans are quite a different party today, a party of conservatism, largely white. It's called the Country Club Party because that's where they all go to, and so on.
Do you think we're set for another realignment like that? The Democrats seem to have the demographics on their side now, as the left-wing workers' party, if you will. The Republicans are trying to get a bit of that back, but is there a bit that's up for grabs?
Well, of course, there is a lot up for grabs because the Republicans control the Congress, not the Democrats, and that's one of the anomalies of the American system, that you can be a president, but you can still have a Congress opposing you. So they are in a pretty big mess now. Yeah.
I was going to say that probably won't change in the near future either. The Republicans have a lock on Congress for probably another 2 or 4 years.
What has changed in my mind is this absolute deadlock situation. Politics is always about compromise and trying to make agreements and that type of thing, but now it's one side against another.
Well, Gerald Stone, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for coming in. Ed Blakely, it's always a pleasure as well. Thank you to you as well.